Today we're going to work on the circular spacer drawing. It's drawing number 6 at the end of chapter 1. In your book it's on page 1-40, and I've also put up a copy of these drawings in PDF on this week's module located on the home page called Chapter 1 Problems. Please note we're already at the end of the first week in October. You should have the book by now. If you don't have the book by now, please send me an email and let me know. It's not trivial for me to copy all these drawings. It takes me about 15 minutes with a very small copier that I have. So I prefer not to do this. And at some point I'm going to stop doing this, and I really don't want to do this for chapter 2. So if you don't have your book, make sure you get it as soon as possible. Okay, so anyway, what you're going to see in this drawing, we're going to be using the tracking lines at other angles, and you're going to see how useful this is going to be. We're also going to be using the copy function, which will help us to create some of these different layers that you're going to see. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to go to my AutoCAD drawing. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a center layer. I've deleted my layers. And actually, I'm still in spacer design, so I'm going to save this file as a new drawing. And I'm going to save it as drawing 1-6. And this is how you should save all your drawings from the chapter from the end of the chapters. So if it's drawing 1-6, you should just save it as 1-6. For the drawings that are within the chapters themselves, those will have to be saved by their name. Okay, so I'm going to save this, so now we have this drawing. I previously deleted the layers because I'm going to go over the layer creation again. So we're going to open up the Layer Properties Manager. So you can either either click here or click here, and it'll open up your Layers menu. If we click on this stack of papers with the sun, at least that's what I'm going to call it, we can add a second layer. We can add lots of layers. Third layer, fourth layer. If we create too many layers, you can go ahead and delete them. So the X here, the red, will delete them. Okay, so we only have one extra layer. We double click, we want to change the name of the layer. Alright, so we're in this layer. And as you notice, sometimes when you click to change the layer, sometimes you'll actually change and select that layer, so you'll see the check mark move over here. That's fine. You just have to make sure that you're on the correct layer that you're working on. So we're going to name this layer Center. We're going to move over to the color. And again, I'm going to change the color to green. Hit OK. Line type. I click on line type. I already have the Center 2 line type loaded. If you're using the same setup from your previous drawing, you should as well. But if not, all you have to do is click on Load, and then come down in the menu and find Center 2. Again, Center 2 has more, the density of the dashes and dots, or the long lines, short lines, is higher. So the long lines are shorter and the short lines are shorter. Click Center 2. Okay, so it already has Center 2 is already there. I can have it. I'll tell it to reload. I didn't have to do that. And I'm going to make sure I choose Center 2, and then click OK. So now I come over here. I check that I've chosen Center 2. I check that I'm green, and I can close this down now. So I come over here and I click the X. So if you notice right now, you can see here we have selected the center layer. So to change the layer, all you have to do is click on this down arrow, and then you can choose whatever layer you want. Always remember to try to work in the same layer. In the correct layer. Although there are times, and you're going to see there's one here, where we actually will not work in the same layer. So let's start adding these circles. And we'll start from the inside out. So if we just go back to our drawing quickly, close this down, we can see that we have an inner circle with a diameter 2, and then another circle with a diameter 2.75. Another one diameter 5, and another one with a diameter 7. So 2.75, 5, and 7. So we come here, and remember, this circle is always going to default to radius, though you can change it to diameter in the text box when you go to enter the radius. You can type D and change it to diameter. So I'm going to use a circle up here. Make sure you've checked diameter, so it's on diameter. Click on circle. And the first one, we're just going to place anywhere. So we just simply start placing the circle. And we want a diameter of 2, so we simply type 2, enter. Now we want another circle. We go back to circle. And if you notice, when I first went to put the circle in, you couldn't see. I'm going to do this again. When I first go to put the circle in, you can't see that center point. If you go to find the center point, you don't see it. So if you hover over the edge, the center point will appear. So once you see the center point, you can come to the center, click enter, and then we can type 2.75 for the center diameter. Now, we talked about this outer diameter being 7, so we can already see this is going to be a little bit larger than our screen. So let's shrink the screen down. So I just use my mouse button scroll bar to zoom out. I'm going to put my next circle in, and it's 5. And if you take a look at that circle is actually in using our center line. Well, I'm going to just put it in using layer 0 for now. And then I'll show you why. So we're going to put it in using layer 0. So we're going to go to the center, hit circle, put our diameter in, so we type 5 and hit enter. Now, this needs to be our center line, so I'm going to click on it to select it. That was a left click. And then I can right click anywhere on the screen, go to my quick properties, and in quick properties you can change the color of a selection. You can change the layer of a selection. Generally, color should always be left as by layer. So your layer will define your color. And the reason you want to do that, you never want to change your color individually, is because when you start doing that, you can get confused. You think something is on a different layer than it's actually on. So I want to change my layer. I want to move this circle to my center layer. So I click on the layer, and I simply choose center. And now you can see the circle is in green, and the lines have this dash dot pattern. Or I should say long short pattern. Okay, so finally we need this outer circle to complete the circles that are centered. But before I do that, I told you I'd tell you why I do it this way. The reason you do it this way is if you don't do it this way, I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to do it the other way. I choose center. I come and I put my circle in. I type my 5. What often happens is then you forget that you're in the center layer. So then you're going to go do your next circle. You can put your next circle in, and it's going to be on the wrong layer. And you can change it back. So I can change this one from center to layer 0. And then all is good. But I still have to remember that I need to change my layer. If I don't change my layer back to layer 0, I'm going to keep repeating and putting stuff on the wrong layer. So eventually you're going to remember. But when I find when you only have to do, or when you only have to place, let's say, one circle out of 1, 2, 3, 4 here on a different layer, then it's better to just place it on the wrong layer and use properties to switch it. So anyway, I'm going to delete this for now, and then I'll go back and put it back in. So to place that final circle, we choose circle, click on the center, and then we type 7. Now, the question you might be asking, why is this green and in the center layer? And the reason for that is that it's not actually a machine part of the drawing. It is what is called a bolt circle. And it's put in the drawing only to give a definition of where those 3 small circles in the drawing are going. So if you don't do this, in order to specify those 3 small circles, you'd have to actually, when you dimension it, you would have to give them x and y coordinates. This way you can say they're on this bolt circle that is centered in the center, and they're located, in this case, if the diameter is 5, 2.5 inches out from the center. So once we've done that, we have to place the other circles. Well, let's place the first one. And let's say let's make the first one the lower one. So we're going to place that down here. And that's going to be very easy because it's on a vertical axis. So we can simply type circle. And then we can come down to our intersection with this bolt circle. And now you can see how easy it is. Now, before I place it, I'm going to take a step back and remind you of the settings that you need to have down here in order for this to work. Well, we need to have our snap cursor to 2D reference points on, our object snap. We need to show our snapping reference lines. So the snapping reference lines, see here I'm able to choose points, but I'm not able to choose our snapping reference lines. In this case, we could for this one, we could get away without that snapping reference line because we have our quadrant turned on over here. So if we look over here, we have our endpoint, midpoint, center, and quadrant. So because we have a quadrant turned on, we're going to have a little X when we get to this point. But we won't see the lines, those reference lines, unless we have the object snap tracking on. For some reason, that word is that set of words is a tongue twister for me. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way. Anyway, so I turn this on, and then the snap to 2D cursor reference point. If I don't turn this on, what you see is when I go to place a circle, if I start, well, I really can't start because then I don't get any locations. So I need to have this turned on. And then finally, we want our polar tracking. Without polar tracking, we get some reference lines, but we don't generally get all reference lines. So we sort of get this horizontal line in some cases as we go to pick points, but we're not getting them everywhere. Finally, and I'm going to go back to the drawing for 1 second now. The angles here, this angle is 120 degrees. So that means that we have 30 degrees here. We have 120 to take us to 180, and then another 30, excuse me, 120 will take us to 150, and another 30 will take us to 180. So this angle will be 30 degrees. The reason why I want to point that out is that when we come back to our AutoCAD, with our polar tracking, we want to set our polar angles for 30, 60, 90, and 120. So let's go place these little circles. So these little circles have a diameter of 1. So I start here, I bring a line down to the intersection, which is also happens to be the quadrant, so I could have just placed the point there. I hit my mouse button to place, I type 1, and I placed it. Now for the next one, I start in the center, and now I use my 30-degree tracking line. So this is my 0, this is my 30, this is my 60, and that would be my 90. So I use my 30-degree tracking line and take it out to the intersection right there. And then hit my mouse button to place the circle and type 1 for my diameter. I come back here and I choose circle again. I come back in the middle. Oh, by the way, I'm not actually hitting a mouse button in the middle. If you hit the mouse button in the middle, you're going to place the circle in the middle. You're going to center the circle in the middle. So we don't want to place it in the middle. We just want to use that middle to get our tracking line. So you see, I'm getting a tracking line, and I want to make sure this is 180. So I want to be, excuse me, I'm tracking from here, and I need to start. Do I need to start over? Yeah, I need to start over because it's actually tracking at the wrong point right now. Unless I can. It's sometimes difficult if you start tracking at the wrong point. Okay, we got it back. We didn't get it back. You can see I'm tracking off this point. Sometimes it's difficult to get it back. Oh, there we go. When you're tracking off the wrong point. So this is our 180, so this would be our 150. So all I do is move up to the point where I'm at this intersection. I hit my mouse button. Now I place the circle. That does place the circle, the center of the circle, and I type 1 to enter the diameter. So now I place the 3 circles. I am only missing my center lines, and then we have these 2 diagonal lines here that are telling us that we have this 120 degree angle. Now, the 120 degree angle is actually a dimension line. So we don't actually have to put that in. That would be put in as part of our dimensioning. We do, however, have to put in the center mark. So we want to put the center mark in. We want to make sure we have our center line chosen, and then we choose our center mark. And again, I don't remember which center mark I'm in here. So let me go check before I do this. In this way, if you're in the wrong center mark, you can actually change it. So we should go to Format, Dimension Style, Modify, and under Symbols and Arrows, we need to make sure we have Line selected. So I hit OK here. If you were on Mark, if it was on Mark, you would change it to Line. And you can see this shows you what the change does. So here we're on Mark. Here we're on Line, here we're on Mark. So Mark gives you the small x, Line gives you the line that extends out beyond the circle. And this number right here, This number, I believe, is the number that it will extend out beyond. So this is saying it'll extend 0.09 inches. In electrical engineering, we call that mils for thousandths of an inch. So I'd say that, speaking in electrical engineering terms, I'd say that was 90 mils. So if you do hear me say 90 mils, that's exactly what I mean, 0.09 inches, or 90 thousandths of an inch. Okay, so we leave that as line. I hit OK. I can close this. I come to my center mark over here. Remember, don't accidentally choose this. This is not the center mark. Nothing will happen if you choose that. Our center mark has a little blue cross in the middle. Choose the center mark. And then you have to remember you choose the outside circle. If I choose an inside circle, the center mark only extends out beyond that circle that I chose. So I'm going to undo that, go back to center mark, and choose my outside circle. And now my drawing is complete. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So I can actually just click on the floppy disk. That's a symbol for a floppy disk, the 3.5-inch floppy disk, for those of you who may or may not have seen one before. But that's a symbol for save, and then the symbol for with the pencil is the save as. So I can just click here to save it, and I'm done. And I'm going to go ahead and end this video.